I would start by my statement that technology takes you for what you are and makes you more so. You shouldn't talk about things that you shouldn't talk about. Negativity doesn't play well. Vindictiveness, vengeful things, sprays about people or companies don't tend to work on LinkedIn. So things that are opinion without supportive fact. Things that are concepts. You can't put a concept in the bank, and you can't really put a good post that's useful to other people if it's just about concepts. People want to see real practical things that that they can use, and so when you look at some of the summary posts that I've done 10 days or 2 weeks after a published post, I've scraped the comments of everybody into MindMeister, which is a mind mapping program, and I can very quickly then edit and summarise based on the themes that have emerged within the comments. And I can then publish that post, and it's been fascinating to see that people have been able to copy that and use it. I've had a couple of emails from people to say that that was the summary of the 10 most valuable questions on technology that a board can ask. Has appeared in a number of board papers by just cutting and pasting it off my LinkedIn post. Yeah. So you shouldn't do things that don't give somebody something to use.
Completely agree. I think if you're talking about a topic that you can't give practical first-person examples of, you probably shouldn't be talking about that topic. I would also say, on a couple of the points that you talked about just then, that if you're not prepared, in the same way that if you wouldn't want it published on the front page of a newspaper, definitely don't publish it in LinkedIn. It is a public forum. It's niche, it's targeted, but it still is a public forum. The other interesting point there that you raised was about negativity. And absolutely, negative posts never ever play out well. You want to be positive, you want to be enthusiastic, giving back to the community. The question that I often get from clients here is, I've seen post X that had a negative headline that went really well. Headlines are a different beast, so don't confuse a negative headline, which can often work very well, with a negative post, which will never work well.
Look, I think that's very true, but that's not to say that real argument, real disagreement, particularly in the comment section, is not valuable. If you can in fact cause people to have a real barney, a real differences of opinion, a lot of value can come from that. And so your posts can have real argument. You can be very forceful in presenting a particular view or opposing a particular strategy, but it's got to be done in a very constructive way. I'm actually married to a professional writer, and Sue carries a journal, she carries a book, she writes things into it. If she meets people that are humorous and funny or say something, she notes it down. And so over the last 34 years, I've learnt if you want to write something, you've got to have the ideas, and you don't often get the ideas when you're sitting down in front of a keyboard saying, I'm now going to write my post. So my work habits are that, again, I've used, all of my ideas, all of my writing comes through Evernote. And so I have a folder on Evernote, which is about the things that I want to write. And I start with ideas when they come. And it can be in the middle of the night, it can be on a plane. I just put ideas in that notebook. And as I think about things, I will then start to add to those notes. And I start off with a post, I list and say, what is the key thing I want someone to take away from reading about blockchain? What are the key things that I want to take away about what are the 10 important questions on technology of a board? And I don't just sit and write that out in one session. I've often had 10, 15, 20 different goes at adding to those ideas. And you also note that I've been blogging since 2009. So things that I've been published, I republish. I start to see something has changed and there's relevance because of what people are reading in the newspapers or what's on television or what's been on LinkedIn, and I will be able to go back to some of those ideas. And it's interesting that when I look at them, I say, I've actually changed my view on some of these things. Or I can say that more simply. I can actually reduce that to its sheer essence, and that leads to better writing.
The three I'd have are: write the way that you talk. So if you wouldn't talk that way to someone in a conversation, definitely don't write it down. A big rookie mistake when people are publishing articles is always to use language that is far more complex than they would ever use in this kind of conversation. If you do that, you turn people off. The more complex the language is, the harder it is to read, the less people will finish it. Second one is use short paragraphs. So no more than 1 or 2 sentences per paragraph. Keep them short. People like to scan often before they get stuck into reading an article. So make it easy for them to scan, which comes to the third point, which is use lots of subheadings to break up your article and give people easy access points to follow your argument. If you do those 3 things in an article, it's simple, it's short paragraphs, and it's got lots of subheadings. Generally, you're going to get good engagement. People are going to find it easy to follow the argument that you're putting forward. Something that's really important here, we're talking about practical tips for getting more out of publishing articles on LinkedIn, is writing good headlines. The headline is the first thing and often the only thing that people will see in their newsfeed or see published at the top of the screen when there's a notification. So it's what brings someone into the article, and it's got to capture their attention. The couple of tips that I'd have to write really good headlines is don't underestimate how long it will take you to write a good headline. Professional writers, if you look at BuzzFeed or some of these other new media plays, will often allocate as long to write a headline as they do to write the underlying article. Now, that's probably not worthwhile if you're publishing for Thought Leadership on LinkedIn, but it does take longer than just your first attempt. So set aside some time to write a few out and get some good ideas out there. But in doing that, I would say for LinkedIn, you always want to describe what the article is about. So practically describe the benefit that someone will get from reading the article. The second point here is make the headline slightly more controversial than the actual article itself. So if the article is 100%, you want your headline to be about 150% more controversial than the underlying article. You want people to feel like that's something that I'm going to have an opinion on up front before they even get to the article, and then they peter down and you have your depth of reasoning and logic in your article, but your headline needs to engage. So don't underestimate the importance up front there.
Steve, I think if you go back and look at that post we did on technologists around the board table, the post was about the value of having people with a deep technology knowledge as directors, helping all directors have a better understanding about how you make technology decisions. But when we finished writing the post, it was quite clear to get people to read it. What it was saying was, if someone is just an expert on technology, we don't want them around the board table. Now, if you said to me before we even started that process, oh, the heading is going to be technology experts aren't needed around the board table, I would have been horrified. But it worked, because the conclusion of the article, as David Gonski and a lot of other very prominent people have said, all board members need to be able to cover the breadth and depth of all topics. And so if you're just a technology expert, if you're just a legal expert or an accounting expert, and that's all you are, we don't want you around the board table. And so the same has to apply for technologists. And look at the eruption that headline caused. Wonderful.
I think the key takeaway here is don't write clickbait, don't write titles that are not related to to the article that you're publishing, but write a headline that is as controversial and as engaging as possible with relevance to the article that's underlying. I say to clients, I say to our staff that the headline has one job to do, and that is to get someone to read the first line of the article.
Yes.
If it doesn't do that job, it has failed.
Yeah, that's true, Sue.
What are some of the results that you've seen, Russell, from publishing content to LinkedIn?
Look, the first is just how many people look at it. And you can see that some of the posts got well over 3,000 people reading it. Others were around 1,500 people reading it, and you can start to see that with the audience that I've got, you can start to retrospectively connect the dots, and you can see why the popular articles were popular. And they are some of the things that we've talked about today, about being practical, about being useful, and so on. So seeing the number of people that are looking at the article is very important. But I really valued being able to look at, well, how much energy did people put into, for example, sharing? When they shared it, did they just share it? Or did they put a comment and share it with a purpose? And when you look at the comments that people made, were they just airing an opinion, or were they really interacting with and making a valuable comment about the post itself or about other people's comments?
I really see that there's two pieces to the puzzle of measuring success of a thought leadership campaign. You have top of the funnel metrics and you have bottom of the funnel metrics. Now, top of the funnel metrics are those things that you can see directly on LinkedIn. The number of views that you get, the number of likes and shares that you get, and the number of comments you get that are deeply meaningful. And you can, and we do, assign dollar values to all of them on the basis of how much it will cost you to achieve that kind of penetration if you were just advertising. Yes. If a company was just trying to reach that target audience of directors and board members in Australia at that level, it would cost them in the range of $8 to $10 per click per person to get someone to read something. So you can assign a value at the top of the funnel to that level of engagement, but then there's also bottom of the funnel, which is, has this translated back to more opportunities for you? Has it led to people inviting you to sit on new boards? Has it led to speaking opportunities? These things at the bottom of the funnel that you need to measure as well to make sure that you're actually achieving tangible outcomes, not just eyeballs. Yes. So both top and bottom of the funnel are really important, getting measurements on both and tracking both to know how you're performing over time. And
look, certainly I've had a number of approaches since we've been putting these posts, which I've had because I've got a full ticket, I've got a lot of things on at the moment. But I've had a number of people approach me because of the LinkedIn posts and said, look, we'd like you to join our board. And one of them I said yes. So those of you that are connected, you'll see that I've become chair of the e-research collaboration and tools network for the federal government. And that came out of people seeing the sort of things that I've been writing and publishing about. So you can directly connect the dots from publishing those posts to being invited to chair that board. But those people, they knew me as well, but it just, certainly in conversations, a number of people referred to the posts and what I've been doing on LinkedIn as we started our discussions prior to them offering me the position. Absolutely, that's true. Fantastic.